Welcome, Chen Yu. Let's
Thank you.
get straight off with a quick background about Yeepay. What does it do, and why is it different from other payment systems?
Well, as the name implies, Yeepay is an e-payment service provider. Basically, what we do is that we connect to all the major commercial banks here in China, and we help the merchants process online payments as well as telephone and mobile-based payments.
Why is it different from Alipay or from PayPal?
Yeah, most of the people have heard about Alipay in China. I think we're different in several major ways. First of all, Alipay is part of the Alibaba network, right? Their main purpose is really to serve the transactions on Taobao, just like PayPal is part of eBay. But Yeepay, on the other hand, we're actually an independent service provider. We're not tied to any e-commerce platforms, so we don't have any potential conflicts with our merchants. And I think we actually differentiate in three major ways, right? First of all, we try to provide a total solution, one-stop total solution. Not only we provide online payment, we also provide telephone and mobile-based payments. And not only we provide bank card-based payments, we also process prepaid card payments. So basically, we try to maximize the access channels and payment methods for the users and merchants. And secondly, we also provide industry-specific payment applications and payment solutions. Because if you look at the market, the payment requirements for airline industry, for example, could be very different for the payment requirements for online gaming. So what we can do is that we can provide customized solutions for all these different verticals and different sectors. And thirdly, what we can do is on top of the payment service, we also provide a lot of value-added services to our merchants. A good example is that in the air and travel sector, on top of the payment service, we also provide short-term financing for travel agents, right? So we can actually help them increase their transaction volume by relieving their cash flow stress.
So you're kind of becoming a bank.
Not exactly, because the reason we can actually do short-term financing is because we also manage the payment flow, right? So we can effectively manage the risks associated with the financing. And the other thing is that our business model is still based on the transaction fees, not on the interests, right? So the financing we can provide to the merchants is actually very specific, just for the purpose of paying for buying airline tickets, right? So the risk is actually quite manageable.
Let me change tack a little bit and ask, you're one of the co-founders of the company. How did you get into this? How did you start Yeepay?
Actually, we've been around for quite some time. We started the company back in 2003, so we have been up and running for more than 6 years. And at the time when we first started the company, we realized that payment was one of the biggest unmet demands in the Chinese market, right? Because the payment infrastructure is lacking behind. People still depended on a lot of the legacy payment systems, like cash on delivery, bank or postal wires, which are very inefficient in the internet age. So we started the company back in 2003, and then we actually grew the company into providing services to many different industries in many different areas. And even if you look at today, right, payment is still in a very early stage, although the market has been growing very fast in the past couple of years, because payment is really a universal need. If you look at the fundamental business models, the first is the new media type of businesses, right? Basically, you have a ad-based revenue model. Right, the second type is really the transaction-based companies. And if you're transaction-based, it doesn't matter what kind of things you sell, whether it's games or air tickets, you have to use payment, right? So basically, we solve a practical need.
Have you got any numbers as to the rates of adoption of e-payment methods? Because, I mean, for an example, my office, everybody buys stuff off the internet in China. We buy air tickets, we buy books, we buy stuff off Taobao. And the majority of the payments unless it's a kind of a Taobao, from a person, it's cash on delivery. Everybody's still paying cash. And I know that's changing because, when we buy stuff off Taobao, we don't use cash. But do you have any numbers that show what's going on in China in terms of the different revenue, different payment methods?
Well, honestly, I don't have any reliable numbers.
Guesses?
Well, guesses right now, well, it varies from sector to sector, right? If you're looking at online shopping, I would say still more than 60% of people depend on cash on delivery, right? That's why I always say that you cannot associate e-payment with e-commerce. I mean, e-commerce in a narrow sense, meaning online shopping. Because for online shopping, just like I said, still a lot of people use traditional payment methods like cash on delivery or even like postal wires. What really happens in this payment market is that a lot of the traditional industries, as they transform to the digital economy and e-business, they make the adoption of e-payments more easily. For example, if you look at the airline business, right, there's this mandatory adoption of e-tickets back in 2006. So it doesn't make any sense to rely on cash on delivery anymore, right? So there's actually a stronger drive for the adoption of e-payment in that particular sector. And I remember reading somewhere, like even in the U.S., only in 2003 there more people using plastic payment, meaning credit card-based payments, than paper payments, meaning cash or checks, right? So China is a huge market with 1.3 billion people, right? So I would say even only 10% of the people would start using e-payment. It's a huge market.
Can we have a look again at the competitive landscape around you? I mean, where do you see, what do you actually see as your direct competitors?
Everyone knows about Alipay. They're still the biggest service provider in China, and their biggest advantage is that, as I mentioned earlier, they're part of the Alibaba system, right? So their user acquisition cost and the marketing cost is relatively low. They can get a lot of users and transactions directly from Taobao. But what I would say is that the biggest competition is not really within the payment market. It's really the competition with the legacy payment systems like cash, right, COD, or postal wires, because everyone is trying to attack the market from a slightly different angle, right? We all adopt different models to solve the payment problems. In our case, just as I mentioned earlier, we try to provide a total solution. We also try to focus on providing industry-specific applications and value-added services.
So you're doing something slightly different from Alipay, basically. And PayPal, I don't know if it's impolite to ask you to comment on PayPal, because recently they've been in the press a little bit, basically saying that they've failed in the China market in terms of becoming the default payment system, like the online payment system for person-to-person, consumer-to-consumer transactions. But what they're doing now is helping Chinese companies to take money from abroad. So Chinese companies that want to sell to the United States, for example. Are you involved in that kind of business? Is that also going to become a business for you, to help Chinese companies who are selling their stuff abroad to take payment?
Yeah, it's an interesting question, because PayPal is actually a very profitable company in China. They make a lot of money doing cross-border transactions. Domestically, they're not doing very well because almost no people actually use PayPal for China-based transactions. In our case, I would say 99% of our transactions are China-based. Right? We focus more on the domestic market because it's growing very fast. But starting from last year, we also began our efforts on cross-border transactions and also on some of the international payments. But most of these transactions, at least at one leg, inside China, right? Either Chinese merchants selling to the outside customers or international websites trying to collect money within China. Yeah.
One final question then, where do you see yourselves in 3 years' time?
As I mentioned earlier, this whole payment industry is still at the very early stage. In the past 5 years, I would say the average growth rate is over 100% annually for the total payment market. But even though I would say still a lot of people rely on the traditional legacy payment systems, right? So the biggest competition is not within this market. It's really competing with the old payment methods like cash. And bank and postal wires. So there's a lot of opportunities and a lot of the space for growth. And the other thing is that if you look at the internet, right, initially internet is only a content platform, but now more and more people see internet as a transaction and commerce platform. So as the internet is transforming from a content platform to a transaction platform, payment is actually playing a more and more important role. Because payment to transaction is just like what search is to the information, right? So you can imagine in the future, the payment platform can play an important role, just as the search company does today, right? So we think there's a lot of opportunities, a lot of growth potentials in the future for this market. Thank you.
Chen Yu, thank you very much.